This man is coming to your house tomorrow, for the wind carried something unnatural through the night, low and sorrowful, like the breath of morning angels. You stood at your window, staring into the darkness beyond the trees, and though no form yet moved, your bones recognized his approach. The stars withdrew behind veils of mist as if they too could not bear to witness what was coming. You have sensed him before in moments of stillness, a presence leaning against the edges of your mind. His footsteps echo in dreams you do not remember upon waking, dreams where the air smells of blood and burning cedar. He has come close in lifetimes before, never fully stepping into your threshold, until now. Your house is not just wood and stone, it is a sanctuary of vows, a fortress of generational secrets stitched beneath the floorboards. But now, something beneath those floors has begun to stir, awakened by a name you never meant to remember. The foundation trembles, not from earthquakes, but from recognition. He is not a stranger. He is a revenant of what was buried. The moon trembled behind torn clouds as the hour glassed itself thin and sharp. Time bends when divine justice draws near, it stutters, collapses in on itself, shatters into fragments of memory and prophecy. The man is not walking from the street, but from another realm, where verdicts are written in flame and sealed by the breath of God. God says this moment was written before the bones of the earth were laid. The man coming to your house carries not just judgment, but the unraveling of a lie passed down like an heirloom. The kind of lie that dresses itself in holy things, wears blessings like perfume, but poisons the soul of a bloodline with silence. The lamp in the hallway flickers, though no draft touches it. Your reflection in the mirror twists, just for a breath, and you see a version of yourself with hollow eyes. The room falls quiet, but not empty. Every corner now holds a watcher. Even the walls have begun to listen. The night thickens. Somewhere beneath your house, a sound like weeping and rusted chains begins. It does not stop. It will not stop. This is not a haunting. This is an announcement. You were chosen to receive him, not because you are strong, but because you are the hinge between what has been hidden and what must now be revealed. The man brings more than words, he brings keys. He brings fire. He brings the end of borrowed time. Archangel Michael says your name is in the mouth of thunder. He says there is a war around your house, cloaked and winged, waiting for you to speak the one forbidden memory aloud. The moment you do, the lock will break. And once broken, it will never seal again. Do you feel it yet? The old guilt rising? The betrayal you inherited like a scar beneath the skin, a story passed through the womb, from one silenced mouth to another? The man knows it. He was sent because of it. He will not knock. He will not ask permission. He is coming with the sunrise, and the sunrise will not be gentle. The dream you had as a child, the one you never told anyone, where a man with burning eyes stood in your doorway and whispered your real name? That was not imagination. That was memory. The time for forgetting has ended. He carries a ledger of debts unpaid. But not yours alone. No, this is about blood. This is about the ones who swore oaths in the name of God but served another. This is about the night something sacred was traded for power, and your house has lived under its shadow ever since. There is one object in your house he will seek first. You already know which one. It is the thing you avoid touching, the heirloom no one truly talks about, the relic that feels heavier than its weight. It will glow in his presence. It will tremble. It will speak. God says you will either open the door or be thrown through it. There is no middle ground. There is no safety in waiting. The blood on your threshold is fresh in heaven's eyes, no matter how many years have passed. Tonight, as you lay down, you will not be alone. You may not see them, but the watchers are posted. The angels that once covered your childhood room with soft wings have sharpened their swords. The man coming is not the enemy, but he is the consequence. And consequences, when anointed, walk like kings. The man entered before dawn, not through the front door, but through the wound in your lineage. There was no sound, only the sudden pressure of knowing something holy had stepped into something profaned. The air curdled around him, thick with old incense and the scent of burnt parchment, and your house awakened like a creature startled from sleep. He walked straight to the table, the one no one sits at anymore, the one pressed against the wall where the paint peels in the shape of a crown. He did not ask your permission. He did not look around. He placed both hands flat on the surface and whispered something into the wood, and you felt the floor beneath you tilt, as though the bones of the house no longer knew which way was up. Your breath caught when he turned. His face was not unfamiliar. You had seen it before, in a childhood fever, in a dream where the sky tore open, in the eyes of someone you once loved and betrayed. This man wears your history like a garment. He is not a visitor. He is a mirror. You try to speak, but your voice stays locked behind your ribs. The man tilts his head and waits. The silence thickens. And then he pulls from beneath his coat a small, ancient knife, the kind used not for violence, but for rituals. Its blade glows faintly, inscribed with letters no human tongue has spoken in 10,000 years. He places the knife in the center of the table, and as he does, your house begins to bleed. Not with red, but with memory. The wallpaper curls back. The lights flicker to blue. The photos on your wall shift. A different family stares back at you now. Their smiles are wrong. Their eyes are too knowing. This is the table of unmaking. Every home has one, though most never find it, and those who do rarely survive what it demands. The man gestures, and you sit. Not because you want to, but because something older than fear moves your body for you. The moment your hands touch the wood, images flood your mind, a cloaked figure sealing a covenant with a voice of fire, a child offered for protection, a name erased from every record to buy one generation of false peace. You see the hands that did it. They are your blood. God says the table remembers. It has waited centuries to be fed again. And tonight, it hungers for truth. The man begins to speak, not in words, but in thunder. You understand him with the part of you that dreams in prophecy. He speaks of betrayal in high places, of holy callings forfeited for power, of prayers answered by something wearing God's voice like stolen skin. He names the ones who built altars in secret rooms beneath cathedrals, the ones who dipped their fingers in oil but served only themselves. The archangel Michael says this house was never cursed, it was consecrated for a reckoning. He says your bloodline was not chosen for shame, but for exposure. You are the blade meant to cut the veil. But you must decide now, will you strike, or will you hide? The man lifts the knife and draws a single line across the table's surface. Light erupts from the cut, golden, searing, impossible. The house groans. The ceiling above you cracks. A cry pierces the silence, not yours, not his, but the sound of a hidden thing being forced into visibility. The man nods once. It is time. He reaches beneath the table and brings out something wrapped in cloth, something heavy, humming with divine tension. He places it before you and removes the covering. It is a book bound in leather that seems to breathe. Your name is on the cover. But not the name you use. The name only heaven knows. This book contains every choice, every silence, every moment you stood at a crossroad and chose to forget. The pages are blank. And then, slowly, words begin to burn into them, written by an invisible hand. They begin with the name of the one your ancestor betrayed, the one who was silenced in your place. The man does not speak. He waits. The house is watching. The table pulses. You are being asked to make the trade. Not the same one they made, but the reversal. The undoing. To offer back what was stolen. To release the one held in silence so your line can breathe again. But this will cost you. You will lose the protection that false pacts gave. You will invite every enemy of your blood to see you clearly. You will burn the mask your family taught you to wear. And yet, only in that fire will you be free. You lift the knife. Your hands shake. The house whispers something in a tongue you do not recognize. And as you press the blade to your palm, offering blood not for power but for release, the air splits. Heaven opens, not above you, but inside your chest. The moment your blood touched the table, everything broke. Not in chaos, but in divine reordering, like the scream of a universe realigning around its forgotten center. The man did not move, but something behind his eyes surged outward, and your house exhaled a wind that had not blown since the day you were born. Outside, the sky tore in half. The clouds split like parchment doused in oil, and lightning crawled backward across the firmament. Rain did not fall, but rose upward in sheets, defying the laws you've always trusted. It was not a storm of the earth, it was the memory of Eden, rising to bear witness. He looked at you, and his eyes were no longer human. They had become windows, windows into a place you once came from, long before breath, long before forgetting. You saw fire and water locked in a dance of eternity, you saw thrones burning with names you cannot speak, and you saw your face among them, torn from the council, stripped of memory, placed in this house as both punishment and key. Archangel Michael says your arrival on this earth was not ordinary, it was intervention. A sacred breach into the bloodline that had sealed itself against repentance. He says your weeping as a child was intercession you did not understand. And now the time of understanding has come. The man touched your shoulder, and your skin screamed with recognition. Not pain. Revelation. Your spine filled with light. Your mouth opened, but not with words, with the sound of ancestral names being loosed from captivity. Names that had been bound by altars carved in shame and silence. And then the man spoke. Only one sentence. A sentence that split your past from your future. It was your true name, the name they tried to bury, the name that holds authority in the courts of heaven. When he said it, the air obeyed you. The walls bowed. And the storm began to answer your blood. God says the time for secrecy is over. What was done in darkness has grown bold in daylight, and the reckoning must come. Your family's sins have echoed long enough. The debt has reached its due, and you are both witness and executor. You saw them then, your ancestors. Lined in ghostlight across the room. Some wept. Some burned. One turned his back. But none could flee. The man opened a second book, smaller, bound in skin that no beast had given. It glowed with an evil light, pulsing with the memories of every unrepented betrayal. And it, too, held your name. But when he opened it, he handed you a pen. Your choice was simple. Sign the rejection. Sever the tie. Renounce the covenant made before you were born. Or do nothing, and let the curse take root again through your future children, your dreams, your work, your body. The man's eyes became storms again. But this time, they were weeping. Divine grief poured from him like oil from a crushed tree. He did not want to bring this burden, but he had to. He was the mouth of justice, the herald of unbreaking. You signed. The book screamed. Not loud, but inward. A spiritual detonation. A howling void shrieked through the soul of your home. The floors cracked. The foundations gave a low groan. But above all of it, something laughed. Something ancient. Something that had hidden behind holy things, wearing robes of priesthood and titles of legacy. You turned. And it was standing in the mirror. A creature of fire and memory, crowned in bones that looked like yours. It had been inside the house the whole time. Feeding on your hope. Feeding on your silence. It smiled when it saw your signature. And it moved. But the man was faster. He drew a circle in the air, and the fire obeyed. He bound it, not with chance, but with truth. Truth that echoed with the same resonance as your name when it was spoken from heaven's mouth. The creature screamed once and collapsed into ash. God says the man came not only to confront, but to finish what was begun. He came with heaven's backing to silence the mouth of the deceiver that found lodging in your blood. The authority you carry now is not borrowed. It is earned in surrender. You looked again at the mirror. This time, your reflection did not waver. It bowed. The storm outside receded, but not before speaking. Not in words, but in pulses. In winds shaped like syllables. It told you, the bloodline is cleansed, but the land still waits. You must speak to it. You must walk its borders. You must declare it no longer belongs to what was. The man stood. He picked up the two books, one glowing with clean light, the other smoking from within, and placed them both beneath his cloak. He looked once more into your eyes, and his face cracked into something like sorrow, something like peace. Archangel Michael says he has marked your house. No enemy may enter without trembling. No curse may settle without burning. But your voice must remain open. If silence returns, so will the smoke. And just before he turned to leave, the man reached to your chest and touched the place where your heartbeat now sounded like wings. He whispered your name one last time. And disappeared through the floor, into the foundations, where the reckoning first began. The air after his departure felt scorched but clear, like the atmosphere after divine lightning has kissed the earth and demanded it never lie again. You sat alone at the table, though the room still pulsed with unseen presence. The walls were no longer hiding, they were breathing, listening, echoing with the memory of justice fulfilled. The silence was not peace yet, it was choice. A heavy, holy silence where all things waited to see what you would become now that your inheritance had been cracked open. The ashes from the creature still curled in slow spirals near your feet, whispering curses that could no longer cling, though they tried. You moved as if waking from a coma, but something in you was sharper than ever. Your bones hummed with sacred authority. Your breath came in waves like incense. You looked around the room, and for the first time, you saw it as it truly was, a battleground disguised as a home, a sanctuary wearing the skin of a prison. God says your decision tonight will echo into the marrow of generations not yet born. He says what you choose now will either rebuild the altar in truth or let it rot under the weight of compromise. There is no neutrality left. The mercy period has collapsed. And so you stood. Slowly. Deliberately. You gathered the ashes of the thing that once ruled your blood. You carried them outside, past the threshold, into the yard that once held childhood laughter and hidden graves. The sky above you bled gold through the last of the torn clouds. You dug into the earth, not out of ritual, but obedience. The ground opened easily, as though it, too, was waiting. You poured the ashes in. The soil hissed. Something sighed. And from behind you, the man's voice returned, not aloud, but from within your ribcage. He said, "Now bless the land." Your voice trembled at first, but then rose like thunder laced with honey. You spoke the words that had been stored in your spirit for years. Not prayers you were taught, but declarations you had never dared speak. The land belongs to the glory of God. The inheritance is clean. The house is sanctified. The name is restored. And then it happened. The ground around the burial site lit with faint white veins, like holy fire threading through roots. The trees shuddered. The air pressed against your skin like 1,000 wings. A figure moved at the edge of the tree line, not threatening, not human, not explainable. Watching. Approving. You returned inside. The house felt bigger. Not in size, but in breadth. In destiny. Rooms that once held oppression now seemed to wait like open scrolls. You knew it was not over, but it had turned. And turning is the beginning of freedom. Archangel Michael says the enemy has sent scouts. They will test the border. They will whisper through familiar voices. They will remind you of who you were. But the ground itself now fights for you. The bloodline has turned. The veil has ripped. You walk to the room where the heirloom once lay. It was gone. In its place, a golden thread coiled neatly into a ring. You picked it up, and it melted into your palm, becoming part of you, part of your calling, part of the covenant now signed in truth. From the attic came a sound like rain, only there was no rain outside. You climbed the stairs, and when you opened the door, you found the forgotten room. The one no one dared enter. Inside were journals, relics, items that once belonged to those who built the false altar. You saw names, faces, places, all marked with the signature of deception. But there, in the center, was something glowing. A seed. Small, warm, pulsing with light. You picked it up, and the moment you did, a vision surged through you, a future generation, standing strong, unshackled, holding the banner of the one who redeemed your name. This is what you fought for. God says this is your inheritance, not the riches of men, but the restoration of truth, the severing of false authority, the replanting of what was stolen. He says your name is now written in a different registry. You are no longer defined by the betrayal, but by the turning. You wept then. Not from pain, but from awe. From relief. From knowing that even in the crushing, heaven had been close. Even when you walked through silence, your tears were counted as warfare. As you came back down the stairs, you noticed something strange. The man's coat, draped across a chair. He had left it behind. Folded neatly, inside the pocket, was a single feather, black at the tip, gold at the base. And a torn piece of paper with only 3 words, burn or bloom. Your choice now is not about survival. It is about identity. Will you step fully into the glory waiting, or slip back into the ashes that cling like nostalgia? You stood in the doorway of your house, morning breaking fully now, light seeping in like oil anointing the walls. A bird cried out, not in warning, but in song. You stepped outside barefoot, into the sacred soil, and you whispered one final word. Yes. The wind stilled. The watchers lifted their wings. And a new covenant was written in the